Hello, everyone. Glad y'all able to join us tonight. Got a show that we're going to be talking about some of the pieces of the puzzles and things that puzzle me about some of the evidence that was recovered from the residents and look at some of that. And also, I've got one of the show and tell. I went and got some of the nitrile gloves that I have upstairs and show you how that if you haven't wore these things, and if he did wear them, what some of the things he might be facing is putting them on in the dark. But anyway, before we get started into the show, as always, want to welcome everybody. Uh, we got Nightbot out there at start, and also people in chat. Respect the families, respect mods, and respect each other as you chat and participate in the show. And we'll have a brief introduction, and we'll go from there. As always, I'm Steve. I'm a retired law enforcement officer, 20 years of service. Started off my career working in the jail, went on road patrol and then into investigations. Had all different types of training from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene tech, which helped my investigative career immensely and comes in especially important now when in the true crime world. But I've investigated all different types of crimes from thefts, burglaries to homicides. I retired and decided to become a ambassador for law enforcement, and that's what brought me here today. And now that I'm into this true crime arena, um, and doors have opened with the as my channel grows and through the support, and allows me to go out there and work cold cases with some of the families that have lost loved ones, and look forward to continuing that. We're a new channel. Just started making videos back in May. But tonight, we're going to be looking at Brian Kohberger, who's the accused of the homicides of Madison, Kaylee, Ethan, and Xana. If you have any information on this case, absolutely make sure law enforcement has it so that they'll be able to take that information and ensure that justice is served. All right. So let's get into the items seized and stuff. One of the things they mentioned is, and we don't know at the crime scene, they have nitrite. I don't know if it's a misspelling or there's a brand out there somewhere that is specifically nitrite. I'm familiar with the nitrile or nitrile type of glove. And they were talking about a black glove, as it says here, that was seized during the search warrant of Kohberger's residence in Washington State. And like I said, these gloves, I'm color coordinated now. I got blue on. They're normally, when you bring them out of the box, they're all wrinkled up and everything. And this box size says that one size fits all. They didn't have my hand size, so I had to buy whatever was at the store when I bought that box. I've got some more ordered, appropriate size, but you can still take these, and this is something that's common for all CSI, crime scene guys, investigators, nurses, doctors. They wear these gloves. Now, this isn't a type of glove that I would imagine would be a first choice for a criminal to take in to commit such a crime as he did. If he is the one, and as we always have to say, is that currently Kohberger is innocent until proven guilty, and that's the way the Constitution is, and that's the way we should approach it. But these gloves here are hard to put on, especially if your hands are sweaty, or if you would, and I can imagine anticipation. How sometimes whenever you're starting to do some types of activities, you get sweaty hands, sweaty palms and things. Well, these are a nightmare to put on in that situation. But unless you have some that are oversized. But I took about 10 minutes stretching these out. And we're going to demo me putting these things on. And they tear relatively easy. So if there's a criminal out there that was trying to use these gloves and as he drove to a crime scene and he arrived and was putting on these gloves, it would take a little bit longer, although I put on thousands of them. Plus, like I said, I stretched these for 10 minutes. So hopefully they'll go on my hands pretty easy. If I hadn't have stretched them, it'll take 3 or 4 times longer than what it should here. So anyway, we'll get started at trying to get the, and that when you pull down on the first one, you still have little fingers and stuff. And so there's an air loop here that you have to get out. They're not easy to put on. And these have been overstretched. So, and can you imagine if this is the type of glove they're talking about, that unless you did this pre-crime and pre-driving and prior to getting out of your vehicle at the residence, but you have to take the risk that if you get stopped as you're driving, I don't care for what any reasons or whatever you might have an excuse for, law enforcement is going to look at this and think what the devil is going on. And so and a lot of times you tear them, and I used to in my CSI work, I would put 4 layers up, and you'd be so that you could wear this one went on a little bit better. I must have stretched it a little bit better, but so anyway, and that's what it would look like on here. Of course, if you use these crime scenes, and they are extremely easy to tear, that, you know, if you see, they just, when they pop just like a balloon. And so in any type of struggle at a crime scene, if anyone ever made contact with your hands or grabbed them, they could easily, I mean, you know, you take it and it's pulled off instantly. So if he was attacking someone and they got hold of his hands, that type of glove would be at the crime scene, or part of it possibly, not guaranteed, but these are not the type of gloves that you would think a criminal would wear and get into a violent encounter and not leave some type of evidence of it. And I'm just speculating as far as if this is what people are saying that may have been used at the crime scene. We don't know currently. We only know that at the residence that one of the black gloves was found, and they documented it. And then as we look at the different parts of the evidence, and let's see here, I'll go back in here before I get too far, see how everybody, Natalie Bell, 999 super sticker. Thank you for your support. That means a lot to me. We appreciate that. It allows us to do a lot of things with this channel. All right, let's say hello as I go through here and get called up after my demo there, guys. Appreciate that. Let's see here. Who we have here? We got Momo that's here from says it's recommended. Thank you for being here. Herbal Judo, single mom. Copper Horse, great to see you, Copper Horse. Jocelyn. Let's see here. SSS, triple S. I don't know which way you go. When you what would be the easiest way to say it. Natalie Bell, like I said, thank you. And QS, good to see you. And let's see what else we got here. There's Elaine, or Lena. Online, single mom, 4. Debbie Leard. And probably so. That could be a misprint, or are they there, or what? I don't know. There could be a special brand out there that's out in that part of the country. In here, when you look at and you go online, I can only find the ones that are Nitrile. Doesn't mean that they're not out there. But and let's see what else. Dave's here. He's driving in the snow. You be careful out there driving in the snow. And Jeff, hey, Steve, mods, and everyone. Hope you're doing well. We are. And let me keep caught up with chat. Don't want to get around. Oh yeah, for the donation to Blue Light, I have to be reminded of that all the time. When Mrs. Steve is here, and for you people that are not here, normally my wife sits over here in front of the bat phone, and she handles the computer and handles the chat and all that, and handles the Blue Light whenever we get anyone that supports the channel. Oh. There are rumors out there that they could have seized more items from his apartment, and they're not releasing that to the public. If that were true, wouldn't it be listed but redacted? I would imagine so. I mean, you can amend returns, but you have to be extremely careful with that because you have a limited time of executing a search and warrant. And you have a limited time of declaring all the items seized back to the court. At least here, I don't know about out there. I don't know. Did y'all use a timer on me about how long it took me to put those things on? Yes, sometimes it is very time consuming to get the gloves out. And like I said, if I hadn't pre-stretched them, it'd been 2 to 3 times that because they're absolutely miserable to put on. Second pair is easier to put on than the first pair. Nope, they all say natural, but some are thin and some are very thick. Medical uses the thinner type, and COs use the thicker gloves. And there's, of course, tactical gloves out there also that I would imagine someone going to commit a crime would more likely use versus something like this. But who knows? He could have used anything and everything, for whatever reasons. I heard there are different thicknesses of those gloves, and some are tougher than others. I would imagine so. I bought the cheap brand, and but over the years, I probably at crime scenes have destroyed thousands of them before I ever got them on my hands. That they rip and tear, and you just throw another pair on, and then, like I said, normally after you get the first pair on, everything after that works extremely well. It's just that first layer when you have sweaty palms. They're medical. These here said that they're examination gloves. That they have textured fingers for excellent grip. I don't know about that, but as far as, like I said, when I saw this and knew that if there was some type of violent encounter and he was using one, something such as his the handle of that knife would have absolutely been tearing them. Doesn't mean that he would have left remnants of the gloves at the crime scene, but it's very possible, as I showed you, that these gloves, if you touch them or tear them, they just blow up like a balloon. And at some point, will we find that in the future during the court that there is evidence of some type of surgical glove left in the residence? We don't know yet, but if there is, then of course we know exactly what type of glove it was. I reuse gloves when possible, and they tear after three short uses just from wearing them. I've never even tried to put them back on. So that's interesting that you can't. Usually, like I said, by the time I get them on my fingers and everything, and I work for 10 minutes stretching them out to make sure I could get them on in the limited time I did. Black rubber glove was found at the scene. Yes, Chris with a mob crew did a thing on that, and he had some images prior to the days of the glove being found that wasn't in the area. Doesn't mean it didn't get kicked in or blown in um, moved or something, but there's it's up in the air. Is just it was that one of the offenders' gloves, or is that one of the CSI guys? Thank you, Natalie Bell. You're one of the few channels I enjoy and appreciate your work. Thank you. Let's see here. I should be getting caught back up here now. Four. Hello, Four. Joan, good to see you. Let's see here. Good morning. It's snowing here in Indiana. That is not what I wanted to hear. Are you North Indiana? Hopefully you're not South Indiana, because I was going to go see Larry in a few days. And I don't want to go up there in the snow. Let's see. All right, let me just get caught up here, and then we'll go into the next. Yes, those gloves. Yes, and like I said, if he was using them to as some type of a barrier to not leave DNA or or fingerprints or anything of that type, or skin cells, that is not something that would prevent that, because if your hand slipped at all on the knife, the gloves are going to tear. They're extremely, you know, they're not what you would call highly dependable. Let's see. Here I am. I'm getting close, guys. Uh, Pam, really, they say it's going to snow almost the whole U.S. with ice age coming in with it. Um, be safe if you go anywhere. Thank you. Hope it's not ice age. But anyway, all right. So now we did a little bit of the glove stuff. This and I looked at some of the information as far as law enforcement, and I found it extremely interesting that when they took the Walmart receipt and the two Marshall receipts, there's a reason that they took those receipts. It's not because that the receipt says that we have a Dickie tag that says these are white socks, or two Marshall receipts that these are, you know, some type of something that could not possibly be considered as part of the crime. When you're there processing a search warrant and you're in that house, and the judge is giving you permission to go in, you're not going to be in there searching and taking stuff that is not relevant to the crime itself. So these Dickies tags and the receipts, the items listed on it had some type of interest for the law enforcement, and will play some part in it. Now, there could be some items on it that has nothing to do with it, but they would have something that interests them as far as taking the receipt and making note of it, and documenting it. Because every time you take anything, it's not just like you go in and you're in your kitchen or your living room and you're cleaning up and you go over and pick up a receipt and throw it away. When you're processing a crime scene, and even the search warrant. The search warrant at the offender's house is processed just like a crime scene of where the victims are found. You have to document where everything was found exactly, and it's a process from writing it down, photographing it, getting the evidence bag ready, um, retrieving it, bagging it, and you have it photographed and all the other stuff, and so it's a multi point and multiple steps to just take a receipt, and they're not going to do that unless there's some reason for it. And so I believe that these receipts and tags will have some link as far as what the crime is. Is it going to be some type of dark clothing or things? I would expect so. The Bissell Power Force, as I in one of my previous shows, you seen, and then I think it was last night that we were discussing if I got it back together. Mrs. Steve was so happy because she was vacuuming yesterday, and it worked, so I didn't destroy the vacuum. And it is odd that they did not take the whole vacuum, and I don't know why. Here in Georgia, I would took the whole thing, and now they may be arguing that they didn't have it in the search warrant, and the courts are very particular that if you don't ask for something, whereas they did ask for hair fiber and stuff like that, and anything that could be that, but the vacuum is the tool that uses it, and it's not only just the container, but they decided to take the dust container from, and which is indicative that they didn't take the whole Bissell Power Force vacuum. And the possible hair and strands, 8 possible hair strands, and that's a cluster of, and when they found that, they're not easily able to identify what it is because it says it's possible hair strands. So it could be hair, fiber, some type of thread, and once it gets to the lab, it'll make sense. Now we get to an important thing that I was looking at, and that says Fire TV stick with cord and plug. I did some research on that because I couldn't figure out, because I played on my TV for an hour or two trying to pull up all different types of apps and searches and see if you could use that Fire Stick to get access to certain apps. And it's a streaming type of system, the Fire Stick, and I'm on Roku. Now, Fire Stick may have where you could, but and there's a process. I'm not even going to say the name of it, but there is a process, and I didn't know about this until I started doing some research of why would law enforcement take something that you watch movies with, and I knew that the Fire Stick and the Roku stick, it has some type of memory. I just didn't know what. But anyway, as I was doing the research on it, and I found that it is almost like a thumb drive, and there's a special process that I'm sure some of you in chat will mention. I'm not going to publicly mention it myself and encourage anyone to do it, but there are ways that you can go in and change that stick to allow any app to have access, just like any type of Android device. And so you can load any app, and I found it extremely interesting. There's a multi-step process, and there's a name for it. And like, of course, I'm not going to go into all that process, but it does allow you to have where you could store a large amount of data. And as you can look at this, and when it comes to computer, I'm absolutely the worst person in the world. I came along from a generation that there wasn't home computers until later in life, and I saw computers come into the law enforcement workforce, and I was around, and we processed a lot of scenes before digital cameras existed. And now we're at the point that your smartphones are better than any of the digital cameras that we used for the first, I guess, 5 years of crime scene processing. That as we went from 35 millimeter into CSI and processing crime scenes, that we couldn't use digital cameras because you could alter, edit, and things, and the courts weren't um, really lacking the thoughts that something could be edited with no ability to safeguard against something being altered. And of course, we now have those safeguards where things can be verified. But these sticks and things, they have a certain amount of use storage on there that for the systems, and then they have some free space for storage that can be used for whatever purpose the design as you're using the system. And it said that there's about of an 8 GB of, on a Fire Stick 4K. There's 8 gigabytes of total storage, with 5.5 of that being available for a person to use. And so, not knowing exactly what a gigabyte would, I looked up how many photos would a 5 megapixel camera, which is a pretty good, decent picture, could you get into a gigabyte? And it's about 500 pictures. And I just did that for trying to show people that, like myself, that don't understand how much storage space that is. But when you have 5.5 gigabytes of it, that's 2,500 plus pictures or maps or whatever you wanted to store. And I'm sure that there's other uses and things that you could do on it if you did that other process, and you could use it just like you wanted to do. Now, that's not saying that's what it was, but the investigators, when they went in and they was processing the scene, they saw that and they knew the potential. And so we're talking about experts in the field that know all about the electronics and the digital age and the processes. And so that makes me feel good that that wasn't missed, that wasn't overlooked. And, so they covered their bases, and which makes me feel good that they covered their bases in a lot of different ways. Let's see here. Let's see here. Let me get back up here, come back down through that. All right. It'll take me a minute to get back up here, guys. Y'all just have to bear with me. Okay. Now, let me come back through chat, make sure if I have any questions, and we'll keep caught up. And because I know that if I do a whole presentation and come back, it's absolutely miserable for people that have questions that I may or may not get. And that is a good question. I also wonder what they found when they searched this office, or did they already say? We haven't had the return on that, and we know what they'll be looking for. Of course, is pretty much exactly what they recovered here. They'll be looking for any of that type of stuff. All right. Yes, the most interesting item, and it is some of about the store receipts. Now, the stains that they found, we'll talk about in a few minutes, which could also, it depends, of all the stains, it's that one red spot that interests me more about that. But and also the animal hair. Let's see here. Yes, and you're correct, and there's a certain process and maybe things that you have to help you do that. Um, let's see here. I find it extremely hard to believe that BCK could pull that off without any injuries. His mask still in place in a matter of minutes. I would too. I've been in some very violent encounters, and it's hard to come out of that. And I was wearing a bulletproof vest, and I've been kicked, stomped, beat, and normally in every one of those confrontations, there is some type of transfer of DNA both ways. And I'm beginning to believe that now. When I first saw it, I said, "Why?" But now I'm beginning to understand why, and I'm glad that they didn't miss that opportunity. Spiritual healer. Do you think we will ever hear during preliminary or the trial while nobody calls the cops until after 11 a.m.? I'm sure that will be brought up and and will be explained for whatever reason. Because I'm curious myself, um, and of course, had Dr. Susan on here that discussed that a week or two ago about the victim or the witness that saw them walk by after leaving one of the victim's rooms, and found it extremely interesting. And I didn't know that people could freeze for that long, um, or at that advanced age. I know children do a lot, but being of that age, I never realized it. And then, yes, we had another show with Dr. Susan last night, and it was she did an excellent job, I thought. Yeah, I'm glad some of you guys out there know how that. I had to look it up, and some of y'all know exactly what some of the stuff was about how you can use those sticks and make it accessible. And they're, like I said, thank you, Karen. Appreciate it. Um, yes, they'll bring up the penalties and see to make a plea bargain more likely. But I think we will still eventually get the witness stories. Um, and Dr. Susan had an interesting thing about his posturing as he walked into the courtroom, and you can see that confidence and the way he does walk in, and totally different than what you see with some offenders, and very observant. And I look at him as a dangerous individual, regardless from my standpoint. If I saw him walking in, and what level of confidence does he look defeated, or is he someone that looking that would take advantage in a moment? He seems extremely relaxed for what he's facing, and so we have to, in law enforcement, we be paying especially uh, a good attention to him. Uh, do you think he would do a plea after he finds out all the evidence they have against him, which I'm sure is much more than we have been told? There's that possibility. BTK, um, turned during the interview prior to, but once he knew enough evidence, he stepped forward. Um, and that was before the discovery, but it may take a court action before he gets to that point. I've never donated before to a YouTube channel, but Steve is one of my favorite. Well, I appreciate it. I'm honored for that and your confidence in me, and that we'll put that money to good use because, like I said, I've got to go. There's a lot of stuff that we're about to do, Chris and I together, and there's a lot of travels to do. No, I'm not saying that the judge denied the vacuum for evidence. I just don't know why they didn't take it, or were they fearful of not of taking it for the fact it wasn't listed? Because you have to be very specific whenever you go into and ask for certain things. You just can't say, "Oh, I'm going to get a search warrant and seize whatever I want when I get at a residence." It doesn't work that way. You have to be, and that's how come you'll see these search warrants that list everything from digital devices, probable cause of why, and hair, fiber, blood, animal hair, cat hair, whatever, and cleaning supplies, and they'll list them out. And sometimes you have that, sometimes you don't. Oh, no, they'll have their own behavioral science and behavioral analyst units that are well qualified and experts and recognized within the state, more than likely. They can bring in, you'll see more times, or oftentimes, you'll have people that are brought in from out of state by the defenses, but normally the state has people from the labs that will handle almost all of that stuff. Now, I did not know that you can mouse and keyboard. Um, I saw where they were talking about a lot of things. I didn't go as far in depth, but like I said, I bought a lot of computers um, that I probably didn't need. No, I'm not saying the vacuum was denied. I'm just saying I'm curious of why they didn't take it, and just took the dust section of it, because I would argue that it's part of it and there's hair and fiber in it. But I just don't know why they didn't take it. I would be asking that question if I ever get a chance to talk to them. I'll ask them that question. Let's see. Hello, Alexa. Good to see you. Trying to get back down through here and get caught up, and then I'll go to something else here. The filter is where the good fibers would be. Yes, but it's some of the hair. I mean, we've left a residence where there's at least 3 victims of them female, and we know, um, and I know from when Mrs. Steve tears up one of her uh, vacuums with the roller systems, and the bearings go out or whatever. Or before we go and buy another one, I try to keep it working for the extra few weeks. And of course, I should learn by now that I can't do that. But that is where those hairs are. They're down there in those rollers. And now, not saying that isn't where they got these hairs from. That may be exactly where they recovered all of these hairs is from the rollers. But if they recovered them from the rollers, I would think that they would have just seized the whole thing. But we just don't know yet. And but if you go and look at your vacuum, just turn it over, look at it. You'll have your kids' hairs in it, your dog hairs, your wife's hairs, your hair. They're in the rollers. and I don't know why that wasn't taken. And that is something, Dave. Do you think it's strange they didn't take any plumbing drain pipe? I would think they would have took those P traps, which are air vent part of the, and also there's strainers inside the where you wash. That whenever you take the sink apart, that there's certain strainers in there that a lot of time hair catches, and I'm surprised. And now they may have done that also. That may be where some of these hairs come from. I have no idea. Okay. All right, let me go back down through here. I almost caught up. Rockaways, big fan of late night time slot, Steve. I appreciate that. And I did that for a reason that there's a lot of times, and I got some emails, and people work different shifts. And this sometimes is the only shift as when you get off, you come in. And I worked this shift most of my career. I think out of my 20 years, um, over half of it was during morning watch. And I enjoyed it, especially working on the road part of it. Um, Not so much fun when you're working the investigative part of it, because if you're out there at night working as investigators, because bad things. Um, Maybe took the rollers out. They may have took them out and recovered hair, but if they took the rollers, they mentioned the dust collector. I think they would maybe mention it, or um, or that will be mentioned at some point. We don't know if they have amended it or not. Um, so there's a lot of questions we don't have. I was surprised at the little amount that they took from that residence. Um, have you noticed there's conflicting testimony regarding the knife sheath and the PCA and the search warrant request? Um, no, I hadn't really paid attention that there was anything conflicting. Um, very odd how little time between DoorDash and attack, and it is. I have to tell you that. As far as law enforcement looking at it, getting a but we didn't have the nighttime um, on campus um, student activities in the jurisdiction I was in. So college towns, uh, their nightlife, I'm sure, is extremely um, active, and their hours are longer than what ours, the jurisdiction I was in. Yeah, see. Rockaways. I want to know what evidence, if any, was found around the outside of the King Road house showing the entry and exit. Absolutely. Um, there's, everything, we see them out there, and actually I have it. And I had it in a previous show um, on the where they were out there looking at the tire tracks. Um, and That's quite a distance away. And why were they paying focus on that? But also, not only on tire tracks, but they would have looked and looked for any type of blood trail outside the resident in case there as everyone has discussed many, many times, that when you're in that big of a confrontation of four individuals and just one individual, more times than not, the offender will cut himself. And now we have four. And so, and we know that they mentioned that there was defensive wounds on some of the victims. And that means that there was a struggle and some of them fought back. And we also, in the affidavit, it mentions a thug against the wall that could be heard on the camera, which once again is something that you would expect only from some type of violent encounter between two individuals that are faced off, and it's come to some type of blows. And so, yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that we just don't know about. Let's see here, go back over here. I'm shuffling back and forth. But yeah, the outside the King Roadhouse, it would be interesting if they have any type of good shoe prints outside. I know we have that one that's referenced inside. Okay. All right. Let's get back up to the, let me go back over here. And let's see here. Okay. All right. So we got the, we've talked about the vacuum cleaner and the possible animal hair, possible hair, computer tire. I would be shocked if there's anything on that computer tire. And the reason I would be shocked is, as we discussed prior to on other audio, other videos, that you're speaking about an individual that knows about criminology, and he's getting a degree in it, and he speaks to law enforcement. He's highly educated, and you know, his IQ is probably higher than most, which doesn't mean that he can't do stupid things. I've known a lot of really intelligent people do stupid things, and can anyone do that? And as we look at this case, it's obvious that if he is the offender, he made a lot of mistakes. But he would have known at some point from watching law enforcement as they narrowed, and just as soon as his antenna went up, that and he started seeing that they were looking for evidence in things that he didn't cover for, such as he didn't anticipate that the camera systems would identify his vehicle. And as soon as law enforcement let that information out, of course, he knew. Also, he may have been fearful as soon as within just an hour of committing the crime, that after he got in his vehicle and drove 100 yards or 5 miles, just as soon as if he looked for that knife sheath and realized, oh, I don't have it, was the fear of DNA put into his mind, and did he start separating himself from the evidence at that point, or was it later on? And we just don't know. But law enforcement didn't execute the search warrants until, you know, several weeks into or after. And what preparations and what did he do? Now, hopefully, he made a huge mistake and said, okay, I can clean that computer. I can go in there and wipe whatever memory from it. And I'm hoping that is exactly what happened. But knowledge of other criminal cases where other people thought that they could do that and weren't able to do that. Like I said, I'll be surprised if there's anything on that computer tire. I'm hoping there is, but I would be surprised if there is. Let's see here. What else we got here? And now we're getting into the dark stains and the dark red spot. The dark red spot probably fascinates me more than anything. And they collected it without testing. And was that something that they obviously thought was of interest to them? And because the reddish brown stains, a larger stain tested, if they tested it and it came back through the presumptive test, and if it had come back negative, of course, there would be no need to take it, or even mention that it was tested. But they did. They made those two cuttings. And once again, they made cuttings and they didn't seize the whole pillow. Don't know why. And then the top and bottom mattress covers. I understand, and a lot of people have thought that it's interesting they didn't take the mattresses. Well, by the time that anything, you have your sheets and then you have your mattress covers, and there's a lot of different definitions of what those types of mattress covers are. Some of them are thick and bulky, and some of them are thin, almost like a sheet. And we just don't know which one of those are of the two. But it says 2 top and bottom mattress covers, and they have multiple stains. For those stains to get to that level of getting to possibly passing through 2 or 3 layers of other sheets, I find that extremely interesting, and it's very indicative that some type of injury that was incurred at some point and allowed or couldn't be stopped from bleeding, which is not natural. And so it takes a substantial amount of blood to get through layers of sheets all the way down to the mattress protectors or mattress covers. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that. And let's see what else we got here. Let's get back in here to chat. Let me get back in. Going over here, trying to keep up. All right. Doing a better job trying to keep up tonight. I'm hopefully within a year or two I'll have this down. Hello, Frank. And yes, did you see the Mad Greek owner stated the People's Magazine interview with a former employee is not true? I found that extremely interesting, and people do jump the gun, and everyone wants to get out that information. And sad to say that happens a lot. And will occur again? Yes. And because we have some of the, I think another story about the leaked internship or some of the emails are those true or not that have come out by the New York Times. And so there's all different type of stories out there flying around, and what's true and what not. I have no idea. And I hate that for law enforcement, and I hate that for the what will come of that. Okay, if Kohberger, please, we will still be able to find out all the details of evidence then, or would it be left alone because they please get? If they do like they did with BTK, he stood in court and explained exactly to the judge what was going on with each of the victims, and I wouldn't expect anything less than that being part of his deal that he has to explain. Yes, if he wiped his hard drive, the data can be retrieved. And I'm hoping that's what it is. That's the only chance. But I would be surprised if that is the case. I would think that he may have purchased a new computer. Dave, going to have to send Mrs. Steve a new TV now. Yes, I set up there. I typed in every type of app that you could, from Google Earth on mine, and trying to see if I could get in any of the apps, and uh, and I wasn't able to. But like I said, there's processes that I didn't go into, because I would at that point be buying Mrs. Steve uh, probably something, a new Roku stick. How did he carry the knife out if it weren't in the sheath? Why didn't he notice? Does that mean there could be a blood trail to the car, unprotected bloody knife in his car? Um, Absolutely. I'm hoping that he just had it in hand and she didn't see it, or um, that's what I'm hoping for. Um, and why didn't he notice that he didn't have the sheath? He could have been injured. He could be been with experiencing tunnel vision, that he ran across something he wasn't expecting more than once. We know he, from the probable cause affidavit, law enforcement saying that, and mentioning that he planned, and to plan, you got to have a target. And so he had at least one target. And when he gets there, one target turns into two, regardless of which room he went to first. That one target would have turned into two, which the survivor says it was upstairs. And so, from her first mentioning of hearing noises of someone playing with what she thought was the dog. And so, from that, if we, in the timeline, says, okay, the offenses happened up top first, and then he goes down, and either he sees that Xana has seen him, because the surviving witness says that she hears someone saying there's someone in the house. And if she heard it, would the offender also hear it? And if that's the case, is that what started the fight on the second floor? And if so, then of course he ran into something else he wasn't anticipating. If he was only anticipating one victim, now he's had two. So he's been in four fights. And was he hurt, or was some internal clock kicked in? And he was fearful that 911 was coming. And it's totally different dealing with college students and dealing when 911 gets there. When law enforcement gets there, it generally doesn't work out for the offenders, generally. And that is interesting, if that is who he is. I know there's a lot of people that says it is, and we'll find out if law enforcement can prove that, and that will be extremely interesting. Steve is right. I want to know how People Magazine got access to the Instagram direct messaging. They aren't investigators. They aren't LE. Odd. It is strange how, and I don't know, they may employ people that can have access and be able to get within certain apps and understand that, because I don't use all that stuff. And question, is there a difference between a possible hair and hair strand? Would one have a follicle, or is it simply not sure if the possible hair is truly a hair? And that may be is that they're not recognizing if it has that root bulb. And I've looked at that, and uh, I would have just said um, hair fiber, hair slash fiber. I wouldn't have, that would have been the way I would have listed it. Not making a statement it's either or collected hair and fibers. It is interesting that they did distinct that we have one possible on numerous occasions, and um, and it is and for each one listed, it was collected from a different area. And that's how kind of they have the numbers, and they can go back and demonstrate exactly like if you look at number 8, it says one possible hair. And then number 9, it says one possible hair. Those are 2 different locations. And they would have that documented. What does LE mean? Law enforcement. There you go. Well, it's 4 said it right there. I'm behind, guys, so sometimes I may answer your question before I get to the some of the people in my chat who are excellent as far as helping others. Very proud of them. And I have some testing that the uncovered knife has to produce some blood drips or evidence, and it will for a certain distance. But if it's not supplied with a steady supply of fresh blood, a knife, especially metal, will only hold so many drops until it will quit dripping. And at that point, when it stops dripping, another force has to be included, such as it has to have some type of cast off or some type of energy to make the blood come down to the tip. And then once the tension is broken, it will create a blood drop. But that's with another outside force other than just gravity. And but it's not that, and any of you can do this. I mean, you can go in there and get you a glass of water and put a knife in it and drip, and you'll see it only has so many drips. And you'll do that time and time again. And almost every time you're going to find that there's going to be a place not too far from that knife that the water, and water is a little bit different viscosity than what blood is, but not a lot. And you'll see that it'll quit. And the same thing, that when it quits, you move over, shake it, and get another drop or 2, and that's about it. But I've got some synthetic blood I'll be doing that with exactly. Let's see here. And get caught back up in. Does the timeline allow for Xana to have answered the door for her DoorDash and she let him in because he said he was there for a roommate and then came back to take care of the witness? That's interesting. Hadn't even thought about that someone could have knocked on the door and said, I'm going to see someone else. Interesting. Spiritual healer agrees with me. That's a good thought. Mrs. Sweet, I will look at that. Thank you. Hmm. Suspicious of someone who doesn't put a pillowcase on the pillow. And that is an interesting thing that they may have a pillowcase on it, but when they took it off, they found those stains. Once again, why didn't you just take the pillow? But and so he may have disposed of those other pillowcases that would have been stained. We just don't know. And we don't know what type of pillows there are. They could be throw pillows. Don't know. Okay. This is sweet. No accomplice. That's a hoax, in my opinion. I believe there was only one offender in the house. Um, as far as out in the vehicle, I have no idea, but everything law enforcement would be able to quickly um, come to a conclusion on that. Um, they have Kohberger, they have his life story. They're going to know um, all his communication, his text messaging, his phone calls, um, and be able to tell and who he was communicating with, because we live by those cell phones and text messaging, and we create a a timeline of, and a journal from our digital um, um, footprint. And so they would be able to establish if he does have friends and in a short order. All right. So anyway, all righty, guys. Let's go down through here and see if there's anything else. Let me go up here, get this off of there. All right. All right. You want to see, maybe here's a, it's hard for me to understand how BK walked towards the M 3 times. I can understand going upstairs, but leaving Xana's room wouldn't be straight. We had always heard that the survivors were on the bottom floor. And when we found the probable cause affidavit, upon it being unsealed, we find out that she's on the second floor, or that's the way I took it. And extremely interesting. And law enforcement says that from her description and going back, they're able to locate a very common shoe print. And they list that in the probable cause. And will they have any corroborating evidence of that shoe print from the offender? We just don't know that yet. Thank you, Mr. Steve. Prayers to Mrs. Steve. Yes, she's having hand surgery Wednesday, and so everything will hopefully go pretty easy, and we'll get ready for all of Wednesday night shows on Tuesday, and then Thursday I'll probably be on my own, but hopefully not. She says that she'll be able to, because it's just outpatient hand surgery. Cop horse, it's not morning here yet. Yes, only saw him once that she reported. She checked 3 times. That's correct, from what I understand. If he's as smart as he think he is, those shoes are in the river. I would expect, and I do and anticipate that during those lost minutes after he left or a vehicle matching his vehicle left that area, there is a 10 to 15 minute lost of time. And what was he doing during that time? Where did he drive? And I would expect that there is some type of cleaning or change of clothing. Robbie, hello from Australia. Glad you could join us. Uh, David, the warrant stated that for his apartment, they had it listed as a search for any further sheaths in case another object with a sheath was found, determined for evidence of another object was used. And it is interesting that they were talking about, one of the fathers had mentioned that there was some strange injuries or from a heavy type weapon. And could there have been some other type? Absolutely. It's all speculation on our part. And now this is not uncommon. Two officers arriving together to the scene. One states he saw Sheaf from the doorway. The second officer states he was told a Sheaf was found. That's not uncommon. Everyone, you could put 10 people in a room looking at something, and you would get 10 different descriptions of, because certain people focus on certain things, or they see something, and not only that, a foot or two variance in the field of view can make you absolutely see something that no one else saw. Robbie, 99-cent super sticker. Thank you, sir. Or ma'am. I would assume Robbie. I know more Robbies. Officers are instructed to document their observations and told to by other officers noting who told them in their reports. Absolutely. Oh yeah, Robbie, you're new here. Whenever you support the channel, you also get the blue light. I almost missed that, guys. I got it before someone put in there the blue light special. Mrs. Steve, like I said, she normally handles that. Anyway, so here we are. Anybody else? I think I stayed. Did I stay up with chat pretty good, everybody? I'm getting better at it, I think. I think I'm getting a little bit better at it. It may take me, like I said, there's some of the creators out there that I admire greatly that just, they never miss a beat. I'm not that way. Okay. Did they mention what they found at BK's dad's house? No. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of search warrants that, and we only have the return of one of them currently. But the one from his house and about the vehicle, those returns will be extremely interesting. The most important, with any part, any one of them could have important detail on it that seals the deal. But the one I'm most interested in is that vehicle. If that's the vehicle that left that scene within minutes of committing these 4 crimes, it is going to be a crime scene in and of itself, regardless of how well he cleaned or thought he cleaned. Unless he used, and if he used some of the chemicals I use to see if there's still contamination in there, he would know that he didn't get it all. And I'm hoping they're able to process it and find anything that he missed. Spiritual Healer, thank you for your support. Thank you for answering everyone's questions here and for your service and using that experience here for the rest of us. Absolutely, it is an honor. I appreciate it. Thank you for your support. You did great with the chat. Thank you. Oh, almost Spiritual Healer. There's your blue light. I almost missed it. I'm going to get better with that. A verbal deal hit blue. I thank you. Now, this is the best compliment I've got all night. Copper Horse. Copper Horse does such a fantastic job supporting other channels and modding for others. And if she says I'm getting better at it, made my night. Thank you. And yes, we don't know what those Dickies receipts could be for. and it could be for those nitrile covered gloves. Absolutely. I like your way, Steve. Thank you. That means a lot to me, friend. I don't know if I'm the best, but I appreciate the sentiment. I work with some really well-trained law enforcement officers, and some of them are extremely brilliant. What happens to all the evidence once the trials are all exhausted? Do they get destroyed totally or put in a museum? They go into the evidence room um, in case there are appeals, and they have to bring, especially on certain types of sentencing, such as if he is having to face the ultimate sentence, then of course they'll have it there in case anything's overturned and they have to uh, have a retrial. So no, they don't destroy the evidence. Why did a judge order a search warrant release? Was it a Freedom of Information Act? Uh, it was they had said they were going to release it on a certain date, and then out of nowhere, middle of the day, whatever, just a few days ago, that here it is. Caught a lot of people by surprise, and I'm grateful for it, for the fact that it does solve some of the uh, interesting points and things that we didn't know. And I'm looking forward to the others being released, especially the car. I'm so focused on that car. I'm so shocked that someone so trained in forensic investigating others doesn't have the DNA in some type of database to help with this type of crime. They only have the ones that meet certain criteria as far as the CODIS, um, and which is maintained by the FBI. And if you hadn't committed a crime, now they are using some of the genealogical databases from some of the that you can go back and do your um, ancestors, and they're using those databases, which is there will be some at some points a Supreme Court um, hearing on that, I'm sure. Do you think the inmates in prison would treat him like a celebrity or give him a hard time? Um, he would be classified as a certain type of offender, and he'll be housed with other inmates uh, with the same type of classification in the prison system. So he's not going to be around the nonviolent offenders. He's going to be housed with other violent offenders and that type of personality. And that type of personality can cause great harm for any reason, um, just because they don't like what you did, or they don't like the way you look, you walk, you eat, you breathe, or you're in their special space. When you're dealing with that type of inmate, you never know what prison justice will be. This was a question I was answering. That I forgot to click the thing. All right. I hadn't seen that. But Ted Bundy, I think he got married while he was in prison and also had children. And this is possible. I said this last night. I think that DM was there downstairs, and that may have been their theory of how to protect her, that he wasn't seen by someone up close early. That's possible. Yes, high-profile offenders are often kept in a restricted housing unit to keep them safe, and I've seen them use new identities and not use their real names. But they usually transfer them to a location where they wouldn't be recognized. All right. Okay, dope. Is anybody else got anything that they want to ask, or anything of interest? Um, I appreciate everybody being out here tonight and spending some time with me here on the morning watch. Like I said, this is my favorite time of the night. But looks like everything, I've got about everybody answered right now. Maybe I have a new comment. I think she ran to get Ethan, and he stabbed in hall bedroom, then turned to Ethan. Bigger threat, and yes, that is very possible of the series of events. But and as Copper Horse has said, thank you everyone for being here with us tonight. If you like the video and the information, share it, like it, give us thumbs up. I have no idea if anybody gives it enough, even one. I hope there's a few thumbs up. I think they mentioned that she was on the floor and he was in on the bed, possibly. I think, from my memory, don't know. But anyway, guys, I'll see y'all. I see, what is it today? Wednesday or Thursday morning. We'll have another show this after or tonight, and I'll see y'all then. Y'all stay safe out there. Take care, and like I said, if you have any questions, send me an email at steve@truecrimeweb.com, and looking forward to seeing y'all later. Stay safe. Bye.